The portal shimmered closed behind them as the group stepped into the Echo Division workshop. The tension from the recent battle still hung over them like a heavy cloud, though the familiar hum of mystical energy from the facility provided a momentary sense of calm. The pack's wolves moved through the space, their presence grounding yet alert, reflecting the unease that lingered among the team. Clara immediately moved toward the war room, her expression sharp and focused as she set the enchanted staff of light against the table. Ashley followed closely, Beta at her side, while Darren trailed behind, dragging his boots slightly but still managing a grin. "Well, that was fun," Darren quipped, tossing Thunderstrike onto a nearby counter. "You know, if your definition of fun is being outnumbered and having magical chaos flung at you." Clara shot him a look over her shoulder. "Not the time, Darren." "Just saying," he muttered, raising his hands defensively as he plopped into a chair. "This team-building exercise thing is getting a little extreme." Rose, still clad in her armour, stepped forward, placing the rune-inscribed dagger she'd recovered from the brownstone onto the table. "The captain escaped," she said bluntly. "Draven's forces hit the brownstone hard, but their focus was on destruction and Argos." Clara nodded, her expression grim. "They wanted the gem. That much is clear." Ashley folded her arms, her tone frustrated. "And they didn't care about collateral damage. The brownstone was just a target to send a message." Rose's jaw tightened, and she glanced toward Clara. "The house is trying to heal itself. It held long enough to protect Argos and the others, but it'll take time to recover." "And Argos?" Clara asked, her voice softening slightly. "She's shaken, but she held her own," Rose replied. "The gem protected her, and she got Caleb and Evelyn to safety. But we're running out of time to figure out why Draven wants it so badly." The Lieutenant Erendil, who had remained quiet until now, stepped forward. "Draven's captain is more cunning than he appears. This attack was calculated to gauge our response. He'll strike again, and soon." Ashley exhaled sharply. "Then we need to be ready. The enchanted rounds made a difference, but we'll need more firepower if they hit us on multiple fronts." Darren leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. "So, same song, different verse. Prep for another round of magical mayhem. Great." Clara's hazel eyes locked onto him. "We don't have the luxury of complaints. The pack is counting on us to stay sharp. You and Thunderstrike made a difference out there, Darren. Let's keep it that way." Darren grinned faintly, nodding. "Fair enough, boss." Clara turned her attention to Rose. "We need to analyse the wards that held at the brownstone. If there's anything left of their magic, it could give us insight into how Draven's forces operate." Rose nodded. "The wards were stronger than I thought. I'll head back there tomorrow and start reinforcing what's left." The Lieutenant Erendil interjected. "We should also focus on bolstering our defences here. If Draven decides to escalate, the workshop could be a target." Clara's expression darkened slightly, her tone resolute. "Agreed. We'll coordinate with Desera and Sophia to tighten security across the board. Draven isn't going to catch us off guard again." As the tension in the war room began to settle, Rose pushed back from the table. The edges of her fiery demeanour softened, replaced by a glimmer of concern as she glanced toward the hallway leading to the medical bay. "I'm going to check on them," she said, her voice quieter than usual. She turned to Clara, who nodded in understanding. "Evelyn's stable," Clara said. "She's resting, but Caleb, he's in critical condition. Jules working on him now, but the weapon that hit him, it was imbued with dark magic. He'll need more than what we can provide here." Rose's jaw tightened, her fists clenching at her sides. "I should have gotten to him sooner. I should have—" "Don't," Clara interrupted, her tone firm but kind. "This wasn't your fault, Rose. You did everything you could." Before Rose could argue, Lieutenant Erendil stepped forward, his expression thoughtful. "Dark magic is insidious, but I may be able to help. I've seen similar wounds in the Silver Leaf campaigns. If the enchantment isn't too deeply rooted, I can counter it." Rose's fiery gaze locked onto him, a mix of hope and skepticism in her eyes. "You're sure?" "As sure as one can be with dark magic," Erendil replied. "But it will require focus, and Caleb's strength. He'll need to fight as much as I do." Rose nodded, her determination returning. "Then do it. Whatever you need, just fix him." "I'll prepare immediately," Erendil said, inclining his head before leaving to gather his supplies. Clara placed a hand on Rose's shoulder. "While he's working on Caleb, you should get some rest." Rose shook her head. "Not until I see them." The soft hum of enchanted machinery filled the room as Rose entered, her gaze immediately falling on Evelyn. The young witch lay on a cot, her face pale but peaceful, her spellbook clutched tightly to her chest, even in sleep. A faint blue glow lingered around her, a sign of the defensive magic she'd cast during the fight. Jewel approached, her hands glowing with a faint golden light. "She's stable," the healer said gently. "She just needs rest. Her body took a hit, but her magic held up well." Rose exhaled, her shoulders relaxing slightly. She moved closer, brushing a stray lock of hair from Evelyn's face. "You did good, kid," she whispered. "Better than most would have." Her gaze shifted to the other cot, where Caleb lay surrounded by an array of glowing runes and medical equipment. His breathing was shallow, his face pale, and a dark, jagged wound stretched across his chest. The sight made Rose's heart clench. Jewel sighed, her expression grim. The blade that struck him was cursed. "It's trying to spread through his system, but we've slowed it for now. Erendil believes he can counter it." "He'd better," Rose said, her voice low and edged with fire. "Caleb doesn't deserve this." "He's a fighter," Jewel said gently. "He'll pull through." Rose nodded, but her fiery determination couldn't mask the worry in her eyes. She lingered by Caleb's side, her hand hovering near his before pulling back. Clara's offer. As Rose left the medical bay, Clara met her at the door. The Alpha's hazel eyes were steady, filled with quiet strength. "You're staying here tonight," Clara said, her tone leaving no room for argument. Rose hesitated, crossing her arms. "I'm fine." "No, you're not," Clara replied. "Your house is gone and your team is here. We've got room, take it." Rose sighed, rubbing the back of her neck. "You're relentless, you know that." Clara smirked faintly. "It's my job. Now come on, I'll show you where you're staying." Lieutenant Erendil treats Caleb. The medical bay quieted as Lieutenant Erendil stepped inside, his movements measured and purposeful. His silver armor gleamed faintly in the warm light, but his expression was somber. Clara entered with him, her presence steady as she watched from the doorway. Erendil approached Caleb's cot, his piercing green eyes narrowing as he examined the dark magic laced within the jagged wound. Jewel stood nearby, her hands still glowing faintly, prepared to assist if needed. "This enchantment is cruel," Erendil muttered, his voice low. "Designed to cling to its victim and spread like a poison. But it's not invincible." He knelt beside Caleb, placing one hand gently on the injured man's chest. His other hand hovered over the wound, glowing with a soft golden light that seemed to pulse in rhythm with Caleb's shallow breaths. Erendil began to murmur in Elvish, his voice melodic and resonant, as a series of intricate runes formed in the air above the wound. The dark energy writhed in response, resisting his efforts, but Erendil's focus didn't waver. His voice grew louder, the runes glowing brighter until they burned with a radiant gold. Caleb groaned softly, his body twitching, but the cursed energy began to recede, the jagged edges of the wound smoothing under the elf's magic. "Hold on, Caleb," Erendil murmured, his tone firm but soothing. "You're stronger than this." After what felt like an eternity, the dark magic dissolved into wisps of smoke, vanishing into the air. Erendil's shoulders sagged slightly as he exhaled, his hands falling to his sides. "It's done," he said, looking to Jewel. "The curse is gone, but he'll need time to recover." Jewel nodded, already moving to stabilize Caleb's condition. "Thank you," she said softly. You may have just saved his life. Erendil stood, turning to Clora, who gave him a small nod of approval. Well done, she said simply. Argos and Rose are shown to their rooms. Meanwhile, Rose and Argos followed Clora through the quiet corridors of the Echo Division headquarters. The Pack's domain was both rugged and welcoming, with a warmth that contrasted with its tactical precision. Your room's this way, Clora said, gesturing toward a door near the end of the hallway. She opened it to reveal a cozy space with a simple bed, a sturdy desk, and a window overlooking the forest beyond. The soft glow of enchanted lighting gave it a calming atmosphere. Rose stepped inside, her sharp eyes scanning the room. It's nice, she admitted reluctantly. Thanks. Clora leaned against the doorframe, her expression softening. You've been through a lot tonight. Get some rest, Rose. You'll need it. Rose smirked faintly, though the exhaustion was clear in her posture. Yeah. Don't get all sentimental on me. Clora chuckled, shaking her head as she turned to Argos. Your room's just across the hall. Follow me. Argos nodded, clutching the gem tightly as she trailed behind Clora. The goblin-turned-human looked around nervously, still adjusting to the strange warmth of Echo Division's headquarters. When Clora opened the door to her room, Argos hesitated. This is mine? For as long as you need it, Clora replied. You're part of the team now, Argos, and we take care of our own. Argos stepped inside slowly, her yellow eyes scanning the space. It wasn't extravagant, but it was safe. Thank you, she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. Clora nodded. Get some sleep. Tomorrow we start figuring out our next move. As Clora walked away, Argos sat on the edge of the bed, the gem pulsing faintly in her hand. For the first time in days, a small flicker of hope began to take root. The portal shimmered with radiant light as Gunnar and Eli stepped through, the pull of inter-realm travel releasing them into the heart of Alpheum. The air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of ancient forests and a hum of magic that seemed to resonate with every breath. They emerged into a grand hall of silver and green, its vaulted ceilings etched with intricate runes that glowed faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat. The room exuded a sense of timelessness, its beauty and precision unmistakably elven. Around them, enchanted wards shimmered subtly along the walls, their protective energy palpable. At the far end of the hall, Aeliana stood waiting. Her staff rested lightly in her hand, and her platinum hair shimmered like liquid starlight in the ambient glow. Beside her stood 2 elven guards, their polished armor reflecting the faint light of the runes. As the portal closed behind them, its hum faded into silence. Gunnar immediately noted the new defenses, enchanted barriers woven into the very stone, guards stationed at every exit, and an air of heightened vigilance. His sharp blue eye swept the hall, his cybernetic hand flexing unconsciously. Aeliana stepped forward, her serene expression tempered with a touch of urgency. Gunnar, Eli, welcome back to Alpheum. Gunnar gave a small nod, his gaze lingering on the guards and glowing wards. This is new, he said, his voice calm but questioning. What's with all the extra security? Aeliana inclined her head slightly, her tone measured. The Council has acted in response to recent events. The balance between realms is more precarious than ever, and we cannot afford to take chances. Eli, standing beside Gunnar, folded her arms as her violet eyes scanned the glowing runes. Fancy work, she muttered, her tone tinged with admiration. But it makes me wonder, what's got the Council so jumpy? Aeliana's expression grew guarded, her gaze briefly flicking to the guards before returning to them. Come, she said, gesturing for them to follow. The Council is waiting, and they'll explain everything. The guards parted with disciplined precision, their gleaming silver armor catching the soft light. Gunnar fell into step beside Aeliana, his boots echoing faintly on the polished stone. Eli trailed slightly behind, her gaze still roaming the hall with a mix of curiosity and caution. Let me guess, Gunnar said, his tone low and even. This is about the growing mess back on Earth. Eliana's eyes flickered with something unreadable, but she didn't slow her pace. It's part of it, she admitted, but the Council's concerns extend beyond Earth alone. You'll understand once you hear their decision. Gunnar's jaw tightened, but he said nothing more. Beside him, Eli adjusted the gear slung over her shoulder, her expression calm but alert. The faint hum of the hall's magic grew louder as they approached a set of towering double doors at the far end. As the guards moved to open the doors, Eliana turned to Gunnar and Eli, her voice soft but firm. The Council has begun acting on your requests. Be prepared. They'll expect answers as much as they'll give them. The towering double doors creaked open with a low, resonant groan, revealing a vast circular chamber bathed in an ethereal glow. High above, a domed ceiling shimmered with constellations that seemed to shift and pulse, mirroring the Council's magical presence. Around the room, 12 seated guardians watched the new arrivals, their expressions ranging from serene curiosity to steely appraisal. At the head of the room sat Malorion, the Council's leader, his gaze sharp and unyielding. Gunnar stepped forward, his movements measured, his cybernetic arm gleaming faintly in the chamber's soft light. Eli walked just behind him, her violet eyes scanning the room, taking in the intricate carvings, the silent power that seemed to hum in the very air. Gunnar of Echo Division, Malorion intoned, his voice deep and commanding, filling the chamber with an effortless authority, and Eli, wielder of technomancy and elven kin. You are here at our summons, yet the foundation of this meeting rests on your requests. Gunnar stopped in the center of the room, his stance firm but respectful. He inclined his head slightly. Malorion, Guardians of Alpheum, I appreciate the opportunity to speak before you. Eliana stepped to his side, taking her place as his advocate, her presence a steady anchor in the room's charged atmosphere. Gunnar's requests are critical, Malorion. The threats against Earth and the balance between realms are escalating. Time is not a luxury we have. A murmur rippled through the council, quiet but audible. One of the guardians, an elf with silver streaks in his hair, leaned forward. Your reports of incursions on Earth are troubling, yes, but what makes these any different from the countless conflicts we've seen over the centuries? Why does this warrant such unprecedented action? Gunnar's blue eye locked on the speaker, his voice calm but resolute. Because it's not just Earth that's at stake, it's the balance of all realms, Ravina's growing power, her use of supernatural drugs to enslave others, and the unchecked movements of forces like Draven's men aren't isolated problems. They're pieces of a larger game, one we can't afford to lose. Another guardian, a stern-faced woman with piercing golden eyes, spoke next. And yet, your solution is to request permanent access to Alpheum through a maintained portal, to station our guards in your world. You ask for a great deal, Gunnar. Eli stepped forward, her voice steady and sharp. And what do you think will happen if Earth falls? You think the chaos will stay contained? We've seen it. These threats don't stop at borders or realms. If Earth becomes a battleground, the spillover will hit every connected plane, including Alpheum. The room fell silent, the weight of her words settling over the guardians. Malorion, his expression unreadable, finally spoke. We have already begun to honor parts of your request. The portal is secured, and elven guards have been stationed to protect it. But the matter of ongoing resources, particularly the artisan's aid, is still under debate. Aliena turned her gaze to the guardians, her voice carrying a quiet intensity. The artisan's work is not a luxury. Enchanted ammunition, reinforced armor, tools designed to counteract growing threats, they are necessities. If we deny Gunnar and his team this support, we are turning our backs on allies who have stood against darkness time and again. Before anyone could respond, the faint hum of a talisman echoed in the chamber. Gunnar reached for the device at his side, his expression sharpening as he activated it. Desira's voice came through, tense and urgent. Gunnar. Draven's men attacked the brownstone. Argos and the others made it out, but the house is in ruins. Caleb is critical, and Evelyn's injured. They went after the gem. The room grew still as Gunnar processed the words. He exhaled slowly, his voice steady but edged with controlled anger. Understood. Keep everyone safe. We'll handle it. He deactivated the talisman and turned back to the council, his blue eye blazing. This isn't theoretical. Draven's men just launched an attack on one of our own. They were after the gem, and they left devastation behind. If you needed proof of the stakes, there it is. Malarion's gaze remained steady, but the tension in the room was palpable. Eliana stepped closer, her voice firm. The time for debate has passed. The council must act. Gunnar and his team are the first line of defense, not just for Earth, but for all realms. If we fail to support them now, we risk losing far more than a single battle. The chamber was silent for a long moment before Malorion raised his hand, silencing the murmurs that had begun among the Guardians. You've made your case, and recent events leave little room for doubt. The council will deliberate, but know this: we do not make such decisions lightly. Gunnar gave a curt nod. I'm not asking for anything lightly. I'm asking for what's needed to win. With that, the meeting adjourned, the tension lingering like a storm on the horizon. Oh, you've found your way here, have you? Curious about what's next? Pauses. Good, because there's plenty more where this came from.
If you want to stay in the know, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. Turn on notifications, unless of course you enjoy surprises. But something tells me you don't like being left in the dark. Go on, make sure you don't miss a